Okay, continuing on with Pythagorean's theorem, but this time we are focusing on the converse. I can classify triangles using the Pythagorean theorem. So if a squared plus b squared equals c squared, then the triangle is a right triangle. So if it exactly equals c squared, you know you have a right triangle. So let's look at some examples. Okay, so again, this would be A, this would be B, and this would be C. My hypotenuse is always C. 9 squared plus 15 squared, and I'm going to put equals with a question mark. 3 times 34, or the square root of 34 squared. 9 squared is 81. 15 squared is 225. And then 3 times the square root of 34. So again, this 2 applies to both terms. So 3 squared is 9, and the square root of 34 squared, remember these are opposite operations, so they cancel out. So you are left with just 34. So 9 times 34 is 306. So does 81 plus 225 equal 306? Yes. So this triangle is a right triangle. If we try over here, again, my longest side is my hypotenuse. So I'm going to say my longest side is 26. So which ones I call A and B don't necessarily matter as long as I get C correct. 22 squared plus 14 squared equals 26 squared. 22 squared is 484. 14 squared is 196. And 26 squared is 676. So 484 plus 196 equals 680. So 680 does not equal 676. So this is not a right triangle. So we can use the Pythagorean theorem if we know all three sides to determine whether this triangle is right or not. You also have another option by looking at if it's less than or greater than. So if a squared plus b squared is less than c squared, you have an obtuse triangle. So, and again, an obtuse means an angle greater than 90 degrees. So as we go through, again, this was a right triangle. A squared plus b squared was not larger, so this would not be an obtuse triangle. This would have been an acute triangle because 680 is greater than 676. So for our example from B, we would have an acute triangle where all angles are less than 90 degrees. So again, the process doesn't necessarily change. You just have to determine, does it equal? Is it greater than? Is a squared plus b squared greater than, or excuse me, smaller than c squared? Or is a squared plus b squared greater than c squared, which means you would end up with an acute triangle. So let's take a look. Can segments with the lengths of 4.3, 5.2, and 6.1 feet form a triangle? Now, in order for a triangle to form, your two short sides, so in order for a triangle to be possible, I have to take my two short legs and they have to be greater than my hypotenuse. And so, and again, you can think about it like, hey, if I go X amount of distance this way and I go X amount of distance this way, I need to be able to reach this point. And if it doesn't equal that, I'm not going to be able to reach it. And so a triangle has to be a closed shape. So first step is, okay, add up my legs, 4.3 plus 5.2, and then my hypotenuse is 6.1. So this is going to be something like 9.5. Yes, that's true. Okay, so that's my first step, and now I need to do the extra work. So now I'm going to say, all right, now I got to determine if it's acute, right, or obtuse. So I'm going to say 4.3 squared plus 5.2 squared, and then I'm just going to kind of leave this blank for right now because I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be happen, but then this is going to be 6.1 squared. 4.3 squared is 18.49 plus 5.2 squared is 27.04, and 6.1 squared is 37.21. So as I add these up, I'm going to say 18.49 plus 27.04 is 45.03, and that is greater than 37.21. And that would mean that this triangle is an acute triangle. So there was kind of two steps. First step was I had to determine if I had a triangle. And then once I've determined that, I can then determine if it's acute, right, or obtuse. So I know this one because 4 plus 7 is 11. 11 is bigger than 9. So yes, I have a triangle. So let's plug in our numbers. Short leg plus short leg, and then you can say equals or question mark my hypotenuse. 16 plus 49. Again, still have a question mark, 81. 16 plus 49 is 65. 65 is less than 81, which means I would have an obtuse triangle. So super important that you make this distinction. Equals is a right. A squared plus b squared smaller than c squared is obtuse. A squared plus b squared greater than c squared is acute.